Welcome back to Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this preview, we will be taking a look at the Grade 2 $750,000 Wood Memorial from Aqueduct. One of my favorite races every year. I know it gets a lot of grief for not being the most productive Kentucky Derby prep, but in recent years, the race has been exciting for sure, and it's produced some good horses. Maybe not Derby winners, but it's been productive in terms of a couple years ago, it was champion older male Vino Rosso, who then the next year went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, and the Tacitus 2 years ago, Irish War Cry, Frosted, both placed in Triple Crown race. I mean, good horses, good future stallions win this race just about every year, and for that reason, it's an exciting watch because at least you know there's going to be something decent out of this one, and most importantly, I think the 2022 rendition of the Wood Memorial is probably the strongest we've seen in a handful of years. With Mo Donegal early voting and Morello all here, and a couple others who I think might maybe not win chances, but chances to potentially get into the Kentucky Derby if all goes well. So this is an exciting one. I mean, get excited. I know that the Santa Anita Derby, it's got a big 2 or big 3, depending on how you want to look at it. The Bluegrass is the most competitive race of the prep season. This race, though, give it its due. It's up there. There's talent for sure abound in this spot, and we'll dive into each and every horse before I give out my thoughts on how the race will play out and then my picks. But most importantly, as always, our friendly reminder, I'm just here to help you try and figure out if you want to pick this horse or not, or how you want to use somebody more than anything. And we'll start with the one, Mo Donegal, 5-2, co-second choice on the morning line. Very good record, 2 for 4 lifetime. The wins were impressive. On debut, he was going 6.5, much too short for him, got out to a mile and a 16th. In career start number 2 and won very impressively from off the pace. He followed that up with a big win in the Remsen, where he got it by a nose, and I know it's controversial because of Irad Ortiz jockeying for the win, or whatever, however you want to look at it. I agree he probably should have been taken down, but the horse himself ran a winning race, and Irad's not aboard, so there's no one to blame on that front. His final career race to cover was his only start of 2022. It was a good third in the Holy Bull, where he ran a winning race. He ran as good of a race as he could have possibly ran given the circumstances. The short stretch at Gulfstream, cutting back in distance, not a lot of speed in front of him. It just wasn't there for him. But he's a much better horse than that. That was clearly evident by his 2 previous starts. I love his win in the Remsen. Zandon can very well frank that form tenfold with a win or a good runner-up effort in the Bluegrass. So there's a lot to like here. And I love Joel Rosario getting aboard. He rarely turns a hair wrong. Todd Fletcher, of course, when he has a horse pointing to a big race, they fire. And when he wins the Wood Memorial, it's often with a horse that didn't win their first start of the year. And, of course, Mo Donegal fits that mold. So plenty of excitement. I have a lot of faith in Mo Donegal. I think he could run a big race here. I think there's concern maybe the pace. It's going to become a recurring theme throughout this. I feel like a few horses could really go at it early on, but at the same time, they could all play nice with one another. So that's something to weigh, and that I think could maybe get Mo Donegal beaten here. But he's a horse you have to use in some sense because he just has that talent. And given the morning line, at least, he'll have a much better price than I originally thought. The 2 is another Todd Fletcher runner. He has 3 in here, and we'll go on to Golden Code here for Calumet Farm and Kendrick Carmouche. So the trio that took out last year's Wood Memorial at 73-1 or whatever the odds are. I think it was something around that. And they'd be looking at something similar here with Golden Code. Maybe not that high, but high enough. A nice horse, no doubt. Pretty well bred. By honor code, out of a decent mare. Was only $95,000 yearling, though. And it's very interesting. He was second on debut last December behind a nice New York bred sprinting colt named Bold Journey, who's with Beaumont now, and I believe he's stakes placed. Then career start number 2, he went wire to wire, 1x10 over a similar group at Aqueduct as well. Now, into his next start, to Gotham. He ran much better than I anticipated, ran third in that race behind Morello and Dean's List, 2 tried and true graded stakes caliber horses. And he stuck around. I mean, he was beaten 5.5 lengths, but he dug in, and I liked that a lot about him. I'm thinking stretching out to 2 turns will do him good with his pedigree. You just wonder if he's actually good enough to win the race. He'll get a good stalking trip riding behind horses, probably 4th or 5th early on, but within striking range throughout. I just don't know if this is a place where he can reverse the form on Morello, beat early voting, beat a Mo Donegal, beat a couple others in here. It seems like he's overmatched. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he steps up and run a big race, mainly because Todd Fletcher can pull anything out when the time's right, and this is the time he likes to be right. So there's might be some hope for Golden Coat. I could see there's angles where he's constantly improving, and the two-turn stretch out could really get to him. Like those positive angles do exist. I just don't know if he's good enough, and of course he'll answer that one way or the other on Saturday. The three is early voting, 2 for 2 in his career for Chad Brown, a son of gun runner, out of a Tisnow mare, distance, distance, distance. It seems, and we saw that with his big win in the Withers, going this distance over this surface. I mean, that's a huge positive as you come into this race, and obviously the same can be said for Mo Donegal, but for early voting, he did it 2 months ago very impressively. Now, his races have been well spaced out, but he did kind of need the time between the Withers and here because he was coming out of a one-turn race at Aqueduct when he broke his maiden very easily, and that probably didn't take a lot out of him, but the Withers did. He went so hard on the front end and blitzed it, and somehow held, just kept going. It was very impressive, and we know the form from that race has been really strong with Unoho coming back to win the Rebel and Grantham running second in the Tampa Bay Derby. There's been good form from that race, so clearly can't hold it against him, and he'll likely go to the lead here and be challenged, but he might be able to ride the same race that he did in the Withers. Now, the question is Mo Donegal better than him? Is Morello better than him? We don't really know. We haven't seen these guys face one another, and they've all had very different routes to get to this point. So it's hard to really measure them against each other, and their speed figures are very, very similar. I mean, I'm a big Brisnet guy. 91 speed figure for early voting from the Withers, 92 and 93 for Mo Donegal in the Holy Bull and the Remsen, respectfully. Morello's a standout, but the distance is a different question. I mean, Morello is huge on figures. We'll get to him in a couple horses, I know, but I just wanted to kind of show you the comparisons between your top level horses. I mean, where there's one big standout positive, there's also a negative kind of evening that out. How do you balance that is the question. Early voting makes a lot of sense. Point blank. If you pick him, I have no qualms with it, that's for sure. The 4 is the maiden in here long term, and he is consistent in the sense he always finishes second, but that's about all he has going for him. The horses that he is been finishing behind have not come back to necessarily do well. He'll be a pace factor. He'll try and throw it down early on as he stretches out here to 2 turns. For the second time, I mean, he ran a mile and an eighth back in January. He's ran a mile his last 2, and he's been on the lead there. So I envision he'll be up there making life difficult for early voting and potentially Morello as well. But that's all he really is in here. He's got a lot of work to do. If he can pull this off, I'll be very surprised. But at the same time, Todd Pletcher can kind of do anything. So if he can do this, it would be, well, yeah, that's what Todd Pletcher can do. The 5 is Morello, another undefeated 3 for 3 horses here. Actually, quite a few undefeated horses in here. I didn't initially realize that, but you have 3, which is very impressive given they've all are stakes winners and good things like that, and they might not even win the race. So if that tells you anything, but Morello, so good. He has won 3 races, 3 for 3, as I said, all at Aqueduct, all by open lengths, all with very good rides by Jose Lezcano, who rides back here. The Gotham, of course, more than anything. But I question would he be? You have to. It wasn't a bad field by any means, but at the same time, they're either sprinters like a Dean's List, or they're actually just not good, like a good amount of the horses. And so it was an impressive win, but I do question that, and that's kind of been a recurring theme throughout his career. He hasn't beaten much of any note, so you have to really take the visual efforts more so than anything. And he's a good horse. I just don't think the 2 turns, mile and an eighth, is necessarily within his wheelhouse. He's going to be within that first trio that I mentioned with long-term and early voting. He'll be that 3rd horse in there because he's flashed early speed, sat just off the lead in all these sprinting races. So you can imagine stretching out with that extra turn and added distance, all those things. He'll be up there in the firing line, and he'll be wanting to go quick because that's what he's done in most of his races. And pedigree-wise, there's just not a lot there telling me, in addition to his physical build, that he wants to go this far. So that's my knock on him. That's why I don't think he's a win contender, but he's a standout on figures. I'll say it again. He really, really is. He has done nothing but impress. He's done everything right. He just has to answer the distance question. I don't know if he can for me, but if you find something that you like and you think he can get the distance, then power to you, and go ahead and pick him and use him in every way possible, because on talent, it's there for sure. The 6, 1-2 for Saffie Joseph, coming off a big win in the Florida Derby last weekend. He'll try to replicate it, get another one into the Kentucky Derby this weekend with the 2 I'm about to mention. The first being Skippy Longstocking, a horse who's made a lot of starts. This will be career start number 9 already. Took him 3 to break his maiden, but he won by 10 at Gulfstream, and then he has bounced around in stakes company, 2 minor stakes, won the Street Sense at Churchill in October, won the Mucho Macho Man on New Year's Day at Gulfstream, and he was beaten by a combined 29 lengths in those spots, never had a prayer, so that tells you that, and he struggled in allowance company between that. However, last time out he did put together a nice win by almost 4 in there, but here's what I will say, and this is what kind of makes this horse a toss. The only reason he won that race was because of the pace. There was a very nice Florida-bred sprinter trying to go a mile and an eighth and maybe get on the Derby Trail in there, and King Cab, excuse me, and he blazed it, and any other potential speeds got drawn away with him, and that set up perfectly for Skippy Longstocking to come from well off of it and win. So he was really just a huge pace beneficiary in there. I will say the stretch out in distance probably helped him a little bit, but that's as far as I'll go. The horses that were second and third in that allowance at Gulfstream, Steel Sunshine and Swing Shift, were very unimpressionable in their Derby preps last weekend. Steel Sunshine up the track in the Florida Derby, Swing Shift well beaten in Jeff Ruby. That's all you need to know. The form does not hold up, and he's a pretty easy pass for me. The 7's AP Secret. This one I'd feel a little better on. I mean, he had a lot of trouble in the Fountain of Youth last time out after starting his career very well. He broke his maiden on debut. Second time out, lost to Strike Hard, who's been, running average races on the Derby Trail, but he's been good enough. And then the next time out, won another allowance into that Fountain of Youth where he was a price, and he was there. He set a good stalking trip off a slow pace, and then he had some trouble with all the mess that happened with the Mott duo and In Due Time and stuff. He had some trouble. He was right in the middle of that. I think that one could expect him to improve or be better than what the paper might tell you from that last race. However, is it enough to win this? Probably not. I mean, he'll probably grind away and run mid pack and be there. Or if a couple of the big contenders in here have an off day, he'll put in a big performance. But that's about as far as I'll go. He'll need to show a major step up to be a big factor in here. The 8 and the final horse in this field is Baresi. In full transparency, I'm in love with this horse. Just personally, I think he is great. He has made me a lot of money this year with his 2 wins, and even that maiden win back in May at Belmont, way long ago at this point. I used him in some multi-race wagers and singled him, and he made me happy on that day too. So this is a horse who I think is very talented, and it's also made me money, and I think he has a chance to run well in here. He's undefeated, 3 for 3, and the best thing is he wants to go further. He has never been allowed to go further than a mile or 1 turn, and when you just look at him, he's a big, wide, rangy horse who wants to run for a while. That's what that pedigree and his physical build are telling me, and I think that now that he gets it, he's going to be in decent shape. He's coming off back-to-back New York bred stakes wins, and that's really the big thing. We haven't gotten to see him go against open company, but he has been so impressive at the New York bred level. There's no doubt in my mind he'll be able to take it up a notch here. Looking further into it, he'll be able to sit a good mid-pack trip, even though he is stretching out. He doesn't have too much natural early speed, so he'll be able to set up in good position early on. And all in all, I think there's just a lot here. I don't think he can win. I think that there's one other horse who can beat him, but I think he runs a good race underneath, and that's really what's going to put him in decent shape here and potentially sneak him into the Kentucky Derby or find him in another Triple Crown prep race like the Preakness or the Belmont. But he's very talented. He's got hot connections. He's got the pedigree to do this. And his last out speed figure, second best among this bunch, only behind Morello. And even before that, the number really fits in here. The only reason that his overall numbers look so low is because the maiden win, and of course the number is going to come back week in a early May 2-year-old race. But one final note I do have to throw out there: this horse's dam is a half sibling to closing argument, a full sibling to closing argument. If that gives you any indication, that 2005 Kentucky Derby runner-up. So the pedigree is certainly there if you want to knock it. I like Baresi a lot. However, my pick in this year's Wood Memorial is going to be Mo Donegal. I just think he has enough talent to overcome it. I think he runs a big race. It's a good mid-pack it actually could be towards the back in this field with how much speed or stalkers there really are in this race. He could be last or second to last, but either way, I think it sets up well for him on a track we know he likes. He makes one big run and wins it. I think Baresi hits the board as well. I think early voting sticks around, tired late, but still runs third at the end of the day. So 1-8-3 would be the trifecta there. Love Mo Donegal, love Baresi. think one of those two wins. It's a good race though, and either way, a couple are going to be putting themselves in the Kentucky Derby, and that's going to be very important as we continue to cover the Kentucky Derby Trail here on Racing Rundown. And that's all I have for you. We will see you next time.